You can see it in people when they step back from their own sort of familiarity bias and have that sort of big picture view, and actually it all matters and everyone's got their own bias and their own perspective on what's important, and that's okay. I spent 15 years doing expeditions to well over 100 countries, and I was always trying to do with my amazing teams first and fastest. So the whole point of all the expeditions I did was trying to create a different future. It was always about taking what had gone before and trying to imagine a different way of doing it. So I never thought I was the best cyclist. It was always about how you build a team to do things fundamentally differently. So the big difference, I think, between management and leadership, well, there's plenty of good people who technically know how to do the job, but leadership is that ability to actually imagine and then build a team around a different future. So I did that as an athlete and broadcast projects for 15 years. I now do it as an impact investor. I've got 23 companies in my portfolio, and it's exactly the same thing. How do you have the leadership and the quiet confidence to imagine a different way of doing things and then resource that properly? And it's the same thing whether you're riding a bike, making a film, or scaling a business. Motivation is clearly at the heart of everything we do in terms of productivity, prioritization. But I think you need to always remember that humans are human, we're not robots, and you got to keep kindness at the heart of high performance. So this nonsense that you hear about, you've always got to do better, and positive mindset, and other often used phrases sort of they sort of miss the important fact that we have good days, good hours, bad hours. Life is a roller coaster, and what matters most is consistency. And the thing I care about most within my teams is that behavioral change under pressure. Are you consistent when it's going well or when it's not going well, and how the things that you think about and the things that you say and your actions are things that you ultimately control. So yes, I value people who have technical skill sets, but the thing I talk about a lot with my teams is actually how do you be consistent, and how do you give quiet confidence to those around you, because your behaviors and your words really matter. They percolate, and we all sort of cast a shadow around us in terms of how what you say and how you're feeling influences other people's behaviors. So that sort of simple idea around it's just got to be around being positive and motivated, I think misses the important fact in the real world that actually life is complicated. There's a whole load of stuff which is outside of your control. And what I always sort of think about myself and with the teams that I work in is, how do you put people back in the seat where they've got a level of agency, like they feel like they can control the world around them, and actually thinking when you're in high pressure situations, is this something that's happening by me? I've made that choice to put myself into a difficult place, or is this something that's happening to me and I kind of feel a bit out of control? And I think it's a really interesting framework to think about how you sort of stay relevant to challenges, as opposed to this ridiculous nonsense that you always need to be happy and motivated. Because guess what? In the real world, tough stuff is tough, and it's really good to call it what it is and realize that you got to have grit, you've got to have resolve, but it comes with a wry smile. A lot of people go through their education thinking that their value is what they learn to do or problem solve. So school and university is often about, the things that you can remember or the things that you can fix for. And what you learn in your career, whether it's as an athlete or in business, is actually it's the soft skills, the things which are not taught through your education that really, really matter. Things around communication styles, trust, integrity, decision making, the ability for people to rely on you in different situations, network. actually being able to think quite laterally about problems and spot opportunities where other people's don't. So it's the things which are very hard. If I was to think about all the people who have come and gone through my teams over the last 25 years, the thing which you end up really valuing in people is who they are, not what they do. And I think that's a daft thing to think about, but it's so important because we all value ourselves by the job title that sits on our CV and the things that we're known for. But actually, who you are as a person is not defined by your skill set. And I work with boards all the time where you still have somebody on the board who defines themselves as an engineer or an accountant or a lawyer. Now, that is a technical skill set and it's the credibility to get you there. But what people are really relying on in terms of leadership is actually a much bigger view on the problem. And I often see high performance teams with this sort of familiarity bias as you see the problem through the lens of your own technical skill set, as opposed to being able to step back and say, what is everything that I need to understand to be able to pull this off in my world in a first or fastest or pioneering way. So if we're trying to do things fundamentally differently, yes, you need all the skill sets and the components parts of the puzzle, but you need to be able to step back and say, this is not just about finance, or this is not just about logistics, or this is not just about, it's about all of those things. And leadership for me is about being able to step away from your own sort of technical skill set and see how everything fits together, which I think is a really interesting way of, you can see it in people when they step back from their own sort of familiarity bias and have that sort of big picture view, and actually it all matters and everyone's got their own bias and their own perspective on what's important, and that's okay. But actually leadership and direction is about being able to acknowledge all of that, cut through the noise, and have absolute clarity on what's possible and how you're going to deliver it. The best feedback I ever get from events, conferences, keynotes is when people come back to me, often a good time later, and say, I did this after listening to what you said. Now, I'm not a coach. I'm not a business consultant. I'm not telling people how to do their jobs better or the decisions they might make. But if through speaking about the situations I'm involved in, the teams I've worked with, it unlocks some quiet confidence. It allows people to maybe reprioritize things they were thinking of doing in their lives. It could be very simple things around what matters to them. It could be with their work. It could be with their family. It could be with their community. The best fuel to the fire for me is after I've done events, people come up to me afterwards and go, that allowed me to think about this differently. And that's the action I've taken. And thankfully, I've been doing this for long enough now where, 20, 25 years, where I know that businesses have started, people have broken records. I know a couple that even got married. And look, I can't take personal credit for any one of those things, but they've all very kindly come back to me afterwards and said, after listening to you, I did something differently, which created this change in my life. Ah, fantastic. That's the best thing about storytelling, where it's the butterfly effect. You're not telling people what to do, but you've somehow influenced their thinking around their own priorities, which unlocks some potential that was always there.